What if I told you that paying hundreds of millions of dollars in fines is smarter, way smarter than losing billions of dollars trying to force customers into cars that they never asked for? That is exactly the crossroads that Stellantis has found himself in with his Dodge, Jeep, and Ram brands, removing the HEMI V8 and forcing electric vehicles down customers' throats. And if you look at the math, the market, and the last 12 months of chaos, the conclusion is very obvious. The HEMI-first strategy is crucial to Stellantis' survival, and everything else does not matter. Okay, more than 51,000 friends, and if 56% of you guys who are watching this video and have not hit the subscribe button yet, let's start with the receipts on this matter, because Stellantis has been cutting checks for CAFE and greenhouse gas penalties ever since they took over from FCA and they started making the HEMI V8 engine, and these gas guzzling vehicles have been roaring off the lots with massive success. But those checks for those fines were not small and were not cheap, because Reuters tally $190.6 million in penalty paid in just 2024 alone, which also includes 2019 to 2020 shortfalls that Stellantis has been trying to negotiate from ever since, which has pushed Stellantis' total in penalties to over $773 million since 2018, including FCA's tallies. Now, CarScoops highlighted that figure, framing it in their article as that this is the cost of our love for V8 horsepower and torque. But in my personal opinion, it's a $773 million stinger for sure, especially paying for the V8 fines, but it's still a hell of a lot better than the alternative experiment that Stellantis just did with the Hurricane electric vehicles. Now compare that bill to ignoring your buyers, ignoring your customers by removing the HEMI V8 from the most popular models, and then thinking those very same people are going to want electric vehicles all of a sudden. They're going to want electric Chargers, electric Wagoneers and stuff, and then BMW sounding Ram trucks. And that big gamble they just did was a horrible decision, because this summer, Stellantis warned investors that they will post a negative $2.68 billion net loss for the first half of 2025. Let me repeat that. They're going to lose $2.68 billion with a B. And they're going to claim that it was tariffs, which is not. It's on like a couple $100 million in tariffs. And then they're going to pile on some other stuff in the actual reporting that is some write-downs and restructuring charges tied to programs that did not exactly pan out in just one single year. Now, the Associated Press broke down those significant charges to include some things like the program cancellations, program impairments, which I don't know what the heck a program impairment means, but I think that just basically just a fancy way of saying that they were having issues with certain platforms getting them to work. Charter Daytona. There was some problems with some of these platforms, and some of the costs tied to emissions compliance. Is that going to kind of, let's just say, cleanup that you do after chasing an EV-first mess and an EV-first plan that didn't match the demand curve that they thought that customers were going to want?
To begin this cornerstone event, I'm going to call on stage a man who has lived and breathed cars for more than 40 years, and he has a mission to make them safe, sustainable, and affordable for every citizen on Earth now and for generations to come. Please welcome the CEO of Stellantis, Carlos Tavares.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Now, Reuters echoed the same story as AP Press and CarScoops, that basically that shipments are down, no surprise, revenue is down, nobody's buying this EV and Hurricane nonsense, and a multi-billion-dollar hit that they're going to announce to their investors. Pretty much all their extra money that they built up over these 4 or 5 years of being the talk of the town. They got all these multi-billion dollars in profit and stuff. All that capital just basically vaporized overnight from a dude from Europe who thinks that Americans don't want big engines all of a sudden. And this freaking crazy guy didn't think that, hey, you know what? Why don't you check to see what the rest of the market is doing, right? Especially when it comes to Ram. do you not see that, GM and Ford sells majority of their pickup trucks with V8s in them, right? I know Ford is like kind of like 60-40 with the EcoBoost engines, but some of those Ford guys are like very sensitive anyway. So I know they drink soy lattes with those EcoBoost engines. But I mean, what is the deal here? I mean, the uncomfortable truth that these guys at Stellantis don't want to talk about and say out loud is that hundreds of millions of dollars in fines spread out over years is a way better position to take than losing billions of dollars in one single year after discontinuing the very popular HEMI V8 engine in the most popular models. Now, the Gen 3 HEMI bought Stellantis plenty of time to keep building those engines that actually brought people into the showrooms, keep dealers alive, and keep brand enthusiasm intact until they can come out with a new, updated, and more modern Generation 4 HEMI engine. And wait until that engine gets developed and then bring it out and basically carry it forward to a new era. Instead, their failed and fired CEO, Carl Tavares, said F the customer, no more HEMIs, no more paying for emissions credits to basically bring the fines down. And we're going to do an EV and Hurricane only era. And we're going to bring this out. And that's what everybody's going to do, cold turkey and stuff. And that basically failed in one single year. Ram did not last 1 year of no HEMIs in a freaking Ram 1500 before the old company Stellantis basically went downhill. Stellantis was the talk of the town, like I said earlier, with billions upon billions of dollars in profits. Their CEO getting record numbers of money in his pocket and stuff, and all that just evaporated overnight to negative billions of dollars in profits. Like, this is like a stuff of legends of what not to do when you follow up from a very successful era of the Hellcat era and V8s. I'm just saying. But the emissions fines are linear. They are very predictable. But the losses from misreading your customers are not linear and very devastating to your bottom line across the board, basically. I mean, the only Stellantis products that consistently spawn like excitement, markups from daggone dealers, and record sales were the only ones that had HEMIs inside the frame rails. None of these Hurricanes, none of the electric vehicles, none of these little GSC engines, they were HEMIs. When was the last time you saw a dealer advertise insane amounts of discounts, like tens of thousands of dollars off of MSRP, to get a HEMI-powered vehicle off their lot? Don't worry, I'll wait. Like, how did the prices drop? Because that was something that people had like a kind of like a criticism of for the past like 2-3 years.
Well, I think, it's a reaction to the changes that have happened with the company, with the regulatory involvement in Washington, and we're constantly looking at delivering more value into what our customers need. We continue to listen. Sometimes it doesn't always feel like it, right?
Yeah.
But we hear everything that's going on. We can't always react and move as quick as we would like to. I mean, this is turning an aircraft carrier around to sea. It takes a while, and a lot of times you're stuck and you have to pivot in model years, between model years, and pulling the trigger and launching these V8s across the board on Durango. We could have waited till 27 model year. Yeah. It's going to be a little bit clunky in the middle of the 26 model year. We've already started building some V6s. We're going to have V6 GTs out there that we've already been in production, but starting with orders next week, we're flipping the script and we're going all in on HEMIs, and because it's the right thing to do. And you know what? There's no reason to wait for 27 model year. Let's go now.
And this is why, to me, that HEMI first reset that they're going to do going forward, basically putting HEMI first and going to put HEMIs back in most of their models, makes sense to me in a world where the governments are trying to basically push people to and going to EVs and start interfering with people's choice of picking what vehicles people want and bribing these tree huggers of giving them all these tax credits of several $1,000s off in order for them to buy an inferior product that is not ready for prime time yet. And I'm sorry you EV guys don't want to accept this, but it's just, you don't realize that denial is not just a river in Egypt. EVs may be the future, but they are not ready just yet. It's just a reality that electric vehicles aren't the evolution that these people are hoping for. It's not going from the horse and buggy to a steam car is basically going backwards to go into an EV before you can even charge them, or you can even go to a significant range, or you gotta sit down for 45 minutes to go charge a decent amount of range to go to the next location and stuff. For now, and for a short time, or forever, where you want to call it, for now, gasoline engines are still the king. And companies should lead with what prints money, not what gives them kickbacks from the government that sits and rots on dealership lots. Because these EVs are way too expensive for these companies to make, and they need money from governments and need all these tax incentives to bribe people into buying those cars. I mean, the price of this bridge between gas and EVs, especially in this era right here, was only a few $100 million in penalties spread across several years. That is a heck of a lot better, a heck of a lot bargain, like I said, because compared to losing multiple billions of dollars in one single year. Basically, all these other canceled EV program stuff, losing them more money and stuff, and a demoralized like dealership network that's pissed off that they can't sell jack to customers and can't even find a single product that's coming out in the near future that they can charge more money over sticker for, right? Dealers don't like these daggone EVs and stuff. So if Stellantis had treated those fines as the price of basically staying interesting, staying relevant, and staying profitable, we likely would not be talking about these multi-billion-dollar losses that is only estimated just for 6 months out of the year. They could be facing $4, $5, $6, $7 billion depending on how it shakes out at the end of the year.
Last year, Ram killed the HEMI V8, and people had opinions. The same people that killed the HEMI sent me out here with these comments. That's not happening. We own it, we got it wrong, and we're fixing it. You hear that? That's our HEMI, and it's saying, I'm back.
But the story is not over, and the pivot is here, and we are going back to the HEMIs, as TK like to say. The customers are still here, and the engines that made them care in the first place are still the fastest way to get them back into the showroom. In the end, it is very, very simple. The brands that win are the brands that remember why people wanted them in the first place and put the engines back in vehicles that people wanted in the first place. Sometimes the cheapest thing you can do is write a check, pay the fine, and make a little less profit than to kiss the government's backside and lose billions of dollars in one single year. Sometimes the most expensive thing that you can do is ignore your fan base. Stellantis just learned both lessons the hard way in one single year. If you guys want to check out the new Generation 4 HEMI that is now back on track and back in development, you can watch this video right here. And until the next time, I am out.